Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie I'll just drop the truth bomb league so loud it echoed to every arena in the country. And what they exposed, it wasn't just injuries, it was a system, a culture, a league-wide problem has been quietly sweeping shattered knees and concussed dreams and rogue for far too long, and now the rug's on fire. Let's rewind for a second, because this didn't come out of nowhere. If you're here for the real story and not to filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Caitlin Clark, the Golden Girl women's basketball was supposed to be the WNBA, a new era, the prodigy, the ratings machine, the future. But instead of being protected like the crown jewel she's been taking hits harder than most NFL rookies. And then bam, a serious leg injury, the kind that makes you insist reading this slow-mo play-by-play, but instead the league jumping to her defense, or I don't know, maybe implementing basic medical safeguards. They stayed silent crickets, like she was just another number on an injury report. And then there's Lexie Hull, Stanford standout, face of composure until one brutal game. After what a grotesque eye injury that should have set lead protocols into DEFCON 1, but instead it barely registered. Ripple, no investigation, no accountability, just vibes and gauze. Now add Sophie Cunningham to the mix, a player with enough grit to grind glass, and the glitter who suffered a devastating collapse, the kind of injury that in careers or worse ruins and slowly. And again, nothing, no league-wide response, no structural changes, just another day in the WNBA, a wild west. The player health, so a nice three women, each with their own scars and stories, dropped a joint statement that basically said enough is enough. It wasn't just bold, it was a story, because this wasn't just event session. It was a call out, a spotlight on a league as for years been coasting on good PR and hashtag girl power tweet quietly tree and players like disposable parts. The statement was raw, honest, borderline skating, and the internet, oh, it exploded. Hashtag like hashtag justice for WNBA and hashtag protect our players started trending within minutes. Fans, fellow athletes, sports commentators, even random people who have watered WNBA game and or life suddenly had opinions, and the overall vibe, fury, outrage, disbelief that a league that claimed to champion women is out here, letting its stars bleed, bruise, and break. Well, so much as an updated medical checklist. But let's get something straight, this isn't just about 3 injuries, this is about a pattern, a league-wide blind spot, or maybe a willful ignorance, because behind every sprain and a sealed tear is a system that prioritizes speed over safety, performance over prevention. The WNBA current medical protocols, basically outdated IKEA instructions, confusing, incomplete, and good. Guaranteed to fall apart under pressure. There's little to no preventative care, barely any biomechanical analysis, and definitely no personalized training plans like you see at men's leagues or other elite sports organizations. It's not just bad, it's reckless. And then came the expert opinions. Tim Grover, legendary trainer, are not exactly known for sugar-coating things, chime in to say the WNBA, his injury management is straight up reactive, like wait until someone collapses and then scramble. Reactive, no thought toward how the body compensates, no real systems to address root causes. This band-aids on bullet wounds. This collective failure isn't just putting careers at risk, it's threatening the entire future of women's basketball. Because when Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie Hull speak out, when they put their reputation, endorsements, and livelihoods on the line, they're doing more than demanding physical safety. They're demanding respect, they're demanding dignity, and are making it crystal clear we are not here to be sacrificed for TV ratings and ticket sales. And yet the league response so far, it's been deafening silence, no apology, no emergency press conference, no promises of reform, just corporate now nothingness, the kind of vacuum that sucks all the goodwill out of room and replaces it with distrust. And that's what makes us feel like a betrayal, because fans have been showing up, sponsors have been throwing money, the cultural moment is here. But instead of using this momentum to build a safer, smarter, stronger WNBA, the leadership seems frozen, like they never expected the players to realize they have power. But here's the twist, they do what Caitlin, Sophie, and Lexie have done isn't just brave, it's revolutionary. They've shifted the power dynamics, rewritten the unspoken rule book that says don't rock the boat. Because guess what? The boat's already on fire, and rocking it is the only way to survive. This movement has already ignited something much bigger than one league. It's echoing across women's sports, from soccer to gymnastics to track, where athletes have been fighting the same uphill battle for years. It's becoming a broader reckoning, a pushback against a disposable athlete culture that's hidden behind Polish promo reels and empowerment slogans. And now the league has a choice. They can evolve, they can overhaul their medical systems, bring in experts, create actual safety protocols, give players a seat at the table, listen, or they can cling to the reactive treatment plans, the rushed recoveries, the silence. But here's the thing about silence is louder than you think, and when your brightest stars are screaming to their injuries, your inaction says everything. Let's be real, these women aren't just athletes. They're the engine of this league, the face of its future, the reason fans care at all. And when they say something's broken, you don't argue, you fix it, because if you don't, the damage won't just be physical, it'll be cultural, permanent, the kind of damage that turns young girls away from the sport. That egg sponsors pull out, that leaves stadiums empty, not because people don't care, but because they don't trust you anymore. And maybe that's the most dangerous injury of all. So what now? Will the WNBA step up, or will it gamble everything on silence, hoping the headlines? If they're smart, they listen to the warning shot, because Caitlin, Sophie, and Lexie, they made it clear they're not going quietly. And neither of the fans. This could be a defining moment, a turning point, not just the WNBA, but for all of women's sports, a moment where athlete voices matter more than boardroom decisions, where the health of the game finally means the health of the players. Or it could be just another missed opportunity, another cautionary tale. But if the league keeps ignoring the warning signs, they shouldn't be surprised when players start protecting themselves. Now a joint statement, but with early retirements, boycott, and lawsuit, because at some point, a broken ankle is easier to fix than a broken system. So here's your take home. More often today's sports soap opera. Never underestimate the power of a pissed-off superstar, especially when she's got to equally fed-up teammates. A viral #Army and injury report that reads more like a war zone. Your move, WNBA. And if you got thoughts, and I know you do, sound off in the comments. Should lead be held accountable? Is this the start of sports revolution, or just another PR nightmare waiting to be buried? Let's talk about it. Make sure you subscribe for more behind-the-scenes drama, unfiltered chaos, and the real story the league really doesn't want you to hear, because around here we don't just watch the game, we watch the meltdown. This isn't just about injury treatment, it's about the culture that allowed and encouraged it in the first place. Let's talk about their culture for a second. The WNBA has been preaching empowerment, resilience, community, all the right buzzwords, but when the cameras are off, when Instagram captions are posted, and the slogans fade, there's a very different vibe behind scenes. One is he, you're only as valuable as your next game. One that doesn't as overlook injuries, it practically demands them. Because in this league, returning to early from injury isn't seen as a red flag, it's seen as grit. Playing through pain is a medical concern, it's a badge of honor, and taking the time you actually need to recover, that's treated like a luxury, or worse, a weakness. So when Caitlin Clark's leg is out, she's expected to bounce back in time for next week's game. Because ratings, when Lexie Hull take an elbow that literally damages her eye socket, or an ice pack, and expect a smile for the post-game press. And when Sophie Cunningham's new buck was made play, there is no system in place to make sure it never happens again, just a system that wait to see who's next. You'd think after a few high-profile injuries, the league will hit pause, reevaluate, maybe even ask, hey, are we doing everything we can protect our players? But nope, instead we get silence, shrugs, a vague press release about continuing to monitor. Here's the problem with monitoring, it doesn't prevent anything. You monitor a burning building, you call the fire department. You don't monitor broken bones and concussions. You overhaul the system that broke them. And yet here we are watching three players with very different styles, background, and injuries, all arriving at the exact same conclusion. This league doesn't have our backs. Now let's pause here for a second and ask the question that really driving this conversation. Why did it take this long? Why did it take three elite athletes getting publicly wrecked before anyone said a word? Why has the burden always fallen on the players to demand change, while the league is a high behind? It's complicated, and we're working on it. And let's be honest, the silence isn't as damaging, it's insulting. Because for years the WNBA has marketed itself as a progressive league, the inclusive league, the one that listens, adapts, evolves, and now that brand is falling apart like a cheap shoe in the rain. There's something especially bitter about watching the same league that profit off these players' faces, talent, and social justice credibility suddenly vanish the second those players govern themselves. You can't claim to care about women's mental health or equity if you're out here pretending major injuries are just bad luck. This isn't as a sport issue. This is about labor, respect, human rights, and guess what? The fancy it. You think we're going to just watch our favorite players collapse and say, well, injuries happen. Not anymore, because the internet remembers and receipts. They're piling up. This movement isn't dying down, it's escalating. More players are starting to speak, more trainers are exposing how little support they get, former athletes are sharing their own horror stories. The misdiagnosis, the force turns the careers cut short. There's a whole generation of WNBA players who learn the hard way that silence doesn't equal safety, and now the next generation refuses to repeat that mistake. Caitlin Clark has millions of eyes on her. She could have stayed quiet. She could have smiled through it and collected her endorsement checks, but instead she's used her platform to expose the cracks. The same cracks Sophie and Lexie have been quietly enduring for years. That's not drama, that leadership, and let's be real, without his level of exposure the league proud have swept it under the rug, because that's how things work on institutions go unchecked. Systems protect themselves, they don't fix problems until the cause of ignoring them becomes greater than the cost of action. Well, guess what? That cost has skyrocketed, and now the WNBA has to make a choice: evolve or get left behind. Because of the league can protect his players, then what even is the point? The fans don't show up for logos and slogans, they show of a player. Where's the personalities, the rivalries, the energy? And if those players feel disrespected, unsafe, betrayed, then the league loses everything. And here's where it gets interesting. The power dynamic is shifting fast. For the first time, the league isn't controlling the narrative. The players are, and they're not waiting for permission to speak. They're create their own spotlight and dragging the truth into it. With the league likes it or not, we're watching the birth of something bigger, a movement, a reckoning, a full-blown redefinition of what power looks like in women's sports. And honestly, it's about time. Too many women in sports have been told to tough it out. Too many have sacrificed their bodies, their peace, and their future for leagues that never had their best interests in mind. But now that cycle is cracking because of Caitlin, because of Sophie, because of Lexie. They didn't just expose the injuries, they exposed the system that caused them, and they're not going away now. When the message is finally catching fire now and fans are rallying now, an entire sports world is watching. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question, and the WNBA has very little time to answer it. Did it double down on silence, pretend this will all blow over, let the news cycle buried, or do they take a breath, swallow their pride, and admit that maybe, just maybe, they've been doing things wrong? Because if the WNBA wants to survive, thrive, and actually live up to its potential, it can't just be a league about empowerment. It has the actually empower, and that means listener. Adapting, reforming fast. The truth is Caitlin Clark didn't break the lead, she just held up a mirror. Sophie Cunningham didn't start the fire, she'd been limping through for years. Lexie Hull isn't being dramatic, she's surviving a system that treats trauma as normal. If this doesn't wake up the league, nothing will. So here we are at the tipping point, a crossroad with two very different outcomes. Down one path, real change, player safety, prioritized medical protocols, reimagine athlete voices centered. Down the other, denial, spin, and eventually collapse. Because here's the thing about revolutions, they don't ask for permission, they just happen. And when three of your top athletes are standing on the front lines, holder, mic, and dare in the world listen, you either step up or step aside. Your move. WNBA. Let's talk about why this moment feels different, because it's not the first time players have been let down by a league. It's not the first time injuries have been ignored. But this is the first time the backlash has felt like it might actually stick. And that's because Caitlin Clark is not just another player, she's a player, the face, the franchise, the roof. Okie sensation who brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA. Like if the league was smart, they'd be bubble wrap her ankles between games and hand delivering her protein shakes. She the closest thing the WNBA has had to a crossover megastar. in years, and yet they couldn't even keep her safe. So now the question is, if she isn't protected, who is? What Caitlyn injury did beyond the physical toll is rip the shiny PR tape of a lead has been using player star power to cover up structural decay of force fans to ask, wait, how does a WNBA actually treated players? And that question is unraveling years of unchecked authority. Then you got Sophie Cunningham, not a newcomer, not naive. She's been to the system long enough to know how it works and how it fails. Her injury, that horrifying collapse, wasn't as a fluke. It was a slow burn, a result of years playing through pain under pressure without the kind of support or prevention that elite athletes in other leagues get by default. But Sophie, she didn't just take the hit and disappear. She fought back. She joined forces with Caitlyn and Lexie and said, we're not doing as quietly. And speaking of Lexie, how can we talk about how wildly under discuss her injury was a literal eye injury, like vision threatening? That's not just a setback, that's a career risk. And yet it barely got a headline, no investigation, no questions about whether it could have been prevented, no deep dive into the league's concussion protocols or lack thereof. So a nice 3 players from different teams, different play styles, and different stages in their careers come together collectively called the lead. You know, it's not just drama, it's survival. This is bigger than basketball. This is about what happens when an entire system is built on the backs of players who are never given the safety that they deserve. You got athletes literally risking their bodies every night while people profit off and act like injury is just an unfortunate side effect and not a symptom of systemic failure. And most maddening part, this was preventable. Every one of these injuries could have been less severe or even avoided altogether with basic but mechanical assessments, better training schedules, and a culture that prioritizes long-term health over short-term performance. But the league doesn't operate like that. It's stuck in its outdated mindset where pushing through pain is seen as heroism and raising concerns makes you difficult. That toxic culture, it's costing careers. So now with this collective statement, these players aren't as demanding better treatment. They're demanding a reckoning. And the people in charge are scrambling, because once you lose trust your stars, you're not just losing games, you're losing everything. Sponsors are watching, fans are watching, young athletes, the future of the sport, are watching. And what they're seeing is a lead that does a walk its own talk. This isn't just a PR scandal, this is a foundational crisis. Let's say you're a 13-year-old girl watching your idols break down the court, and then have to fight the league just to be heard. What message does that say? And that your dreams are disposable, that your body is only valuable until it breaks, because that's what it looks like right now. And here's where things get messy. The WNBA knows it needs these players. It needs Caitlyn, the audience. It needs Sophie's grit. It needs Lexie's precision. These women are the product, the marketing, the momentum. But they're not asking for special treatment. They're asking for basic human dignity, real healthcare, real prevention, real inclusion in the conversations that affect their lives. And if the league can provide that, there were they offering, because platitudes don't fix torn. The hashtag don't heal bone bruises and adversity panels won't do a damn thing if players are being rushed back onto the court before they can stand without limping. At this point, the silence from league leadership is start to feel like complicity. And here's the irony, the WNBA should be the model, it should be the blueprint for how to run a modern, inclusive athlete first lead. It had the opportunity to set a new standard. Instead, it's becoming a cautionary tale, and fans, they're not letting this one go. Social media is relentless. Every vaguely statement gets ratio into the void. Every PR stunt is met with eye rolls and receipts. People are pissed, and more importantly, they're organized. There's already talk about player unions getting louder, about athletes demanding independent medical evaluations, about fans refusing support until the league earns back their trust. And if you're in the WNBA front office right now, you've got to be asking yourself, how do we get here? Here's how: years of prioritizing optics over outcomes, image over infrastructure. You can only plaster over cracks for so long before the whole foundation gives out. Well, it's giving out, and here's the most poetic part. All the very players illegally non-billed its brand, they're the ones tearing down the curtain because they know one of the WNBA leads it or get dragged into it is entirely up to them. And they're still trying to ride this out, banking on things quieting down. Good luck, because Caitlyn Clark isn't going back to Bison.